Hey guys, tonight we begin with something raw, smoky, and buzzing with ancient rhythm. You're waking up, not in your bed, but on a woven mat under open sky. There's no alarm clock, no air conditioning, just the faint heat rising off red earth and the low hum of insects whispering through gum trees. You're in Australia. Not the Australia with cafes and koalas on postcards, but a version thousands of years older. A place where stone tools aren't museum pieces. They're your next meal. Welcome to an Aboriginal stone tool camp. And here's the thing, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see how far these sleepy journeys travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the ochre sky, soft pinks and blazing orange bleeding together like watercolours as dawn stretches across the scrub. You're wrapped in a kangaroo hide cloak you didn't ask for but desperately needed during the chilly night. The woven mat beneath you is scratchy, and your back is already complaining. There's a faint smell of eucalyptus smoke in the air, blending with something sharper, burnt wattle bark maybe, or roasted insects. You're not quite sure. You sit up slowly, trying not to draw attention to the loud creaking of your every movement. Too late. A child darts past, giggling behind their hand. Great start. Around you the camp begins to stir. No huts or buildings, just the sprawl of belongings under lean-to shelters and paperbark shades. The people here move in smooth, practiced rhythms, feeding coals, adjusting cloaks, tapping away at stones. No one barks orders. It's like a quiet orchestra of survival. You're not part of it. Not yet. An older woman gestures toward the fire. You inch closer, legs stiff from the cold. She doesn't speak, just nudges a wooden bowl your way. Inside, a thick paste of mash seeds. It's grainy, greyish, and smells vaguely of dirt. You take a bite. Immediately you regret everything. Wattle seed mash, you've been told. Full of protein and fibre, also full of grit and the occasional crunchy beetle bit. You chew with exaggerated politeness while scanning for a way to discreetly spit it out. No such luck. Half the camp is watching you. One man raises an eyebrow and whispers something that gets a chuckle. You swallow hard. Welcome to breakfast. A woman nearby grinds more seeds using a stone bowl called a grinding dish. Her arms move in lazy circles, rhythm unchanged despite your awkward presence. That dish? Probably older than your entire apartment building. Some Aboriginal grindstones in the archaeological record have been dated to over 30,000 years. You're sitting beside the descendants of people who invented bakery before the pyramids existed. You try not to think about that as a bug flies into your mash. You glance at your hands. Soft, unblistered, embarrassingly useless. You're about to spend a day with people who can turn rocks into knives, bark into bowls and dust into dinner. You, on the other hand, once ordered pizza because your blender lid got stuck. Across the fire, a teenage boy sharpens a spear tip using another stone. The motions are precise, patient. He doesn't even look down. The spear is one of dozens he's likely made. You couldn't whittle a stick without needing bandages. Then a high-pitched screech breaks the moment. A hawk circles overhead, and someone points skyward. You look up and pretend to understand what's being said, nodding wisely. It doesn't work. A younger girl taps you on the shoulder and mimes wings with her arms, laughing. You smile and nod again. Progress. The sun climbs quickly. The gum trees around the camp cast long striped shadows across the ochre ground. Tiny lizards scuttle by your feet, and the air smells warm and woody. You're still sitting there. Bowl of gritty mash half-eaten, pretending it's all totally normal. But it's not. There's no electricity, no phones, no noise pollution. Just the crackle of fire, the thump of distant footsteps, and the hiss of wind threading through leaves. The pace is slow, but there's nothing lazy about it. Everything here, from how a cloak is tied to when a stick is placed on a fire, carries knowledge passed down for millennia. You're part of that world now. Sort of. No one has given you a name yet, that's usually earned. For now, you're the one who grimaced at breakfast, who walks too loudly, who can't sit still without knocking something over. But there's time, or at least they seem to think there is. Fun tidbit. Some researchers have theorised that Indigenous Australians may have the oldest continuous culture on Earth, up to 65,000 years of unbroken lineage. Imagine living on the same continent longer than mammoths existed. Still, not everything's agreed upon. Scholars remain divided on exactly how early human arrival in Australia occurred, and whether early populations navigated here by accident or astonishing design. The jury's still out on how they survived the last ice age without losing cultural continuity. One thing's clear though, they didn't do it with GPS or granola bars. The fire crackles again. You look around and realise your bowl has disappeared, taken by a small child who's now rinsing it in sand with impressive seriousness. You've contributed nothing to this morning's meal but awkward chewing and a faint look of panic. It's only sunrise. You have no idea what's coming next. You're sent to gather sticks. Easy, right? Just find some dry wood and bring it back. But of course, it's not that simple. The bush doesn't offer IKEA bundles of pre-cut kindling. Every twig here has a name, a use, or a reason not to be touched. Some are toxic, some are sacred, some are home to angry ants the size of your thumbnail. You're given no list, just a look and a nod. So, off you trudge. Within minutes, you've poked your hand into a spiderweb, stepped in something squishy, and collected exactly 3 pathetic twigs. Meanwhile, a nearby child has a pile taller than your thigh and hasn't even broken a sweat. As you crouch to inspect what might be a decent branch, you hear a soft tisk. An elder nearby is watching, arms folded. You panic, grab the stick anyway, and immediately regret it. Your fingers sting. Tiny stingers, some sort of bush wasp, have claimed this prize. You flail, swat, and toss the branch in a dramatic arc that lands squarely on someone else's foot. Congratulations, you're officially today's comedy break. You limp back to camp, offering your underwhelming bundle of wood with the apologetic posture of a guilty puppy. The sticks are examined, weighed by glance, and silently added to the fire pile. You brace for ridicule, but instead, a woman nearby hands you a strip of paper bark. A peace offering, or just a subtle way to keep you away from real jobs. Hard to say. The bark is damp and you're told to twist it, slowly. It's going to be used to carry embers later, a natural fire carrier. You twist too fast, it tears. It's okay, they nod. Try again. And just like that, you're reminded this isn't boot camp. It's a world of patience, an unhurried place where failure is noticed but not mocked. Still, it's easy to feel the weight of every eye. You've never been more aware of your own noise. Your footsteps crunch, your breath wheezes, even your blinking feels loud. The bush is soundtracked by wind and bird call, not by clumsy foreigners stomping around like startled goats. Someone finally laughs, not at you but with genuine amusement, when you nearly walk into a low-hanging branch. You laugh too, a little too hard, like the kid who wants to be liked on the first day of school. A short while later, the group gathers again near the fire. This time, something's cooking. Literally. A pile of glowing coals is being uncovered to reveal something wrapped in leaves. A wild yam. The smell is earthy and sweet, and you're amazed to realise this entire meal was foraged before you even woke up. One woman slices the yam with a stone blade so sharp it puts your kitchen knives to shame. The edge gleams in the firelight. This isn't guesswork, it's generational muscle memory. She hands you a piece. You take a cautious bite, and to your surprise, it's delicious, creamy, nutty, even a little smoky from the ember pit. You nod in approval, mumbling thank you, even though you're not sure if anyone understands your words. They probably do, they just might not care what you say yet. You're starting to realise that language isn't always about words here. A glance, a nod, a stone placed just so. These are fluent forms of speech. And you're still at hello. Suddenly a voice calls out something quick and sharp. Everyone looks toward the trees. You squint, trying to see. A shadow darts between the branches. Something tall, fast and four-legged. A kangaroo. Maybe. Everyone's grabbing spears. Not you, though. You're still holding that strip of mangled paper bark like it's a passport. They move as a unit, barefoot and silent. You try to follow, tripping over your own feet almost immediately. The bush closes in quickly, scratchy shrubs, tangled roots, deceptive dips in the earth. You're breathing too loud, stepping too hard, and forgetting to look where you're going. You realise you're alone. Well, not alone. A small lizard watches you from a rock, unblinking. It seems to be judging you. Eventually someone circles back to find you. An older boy with a spear and a smirk. He says nothing, just gestures for you to follow. You nod sheepishly, stumbling after him like a lost dog. Back at camp, the kangaroo is gone, but there's no disappointment. That wasn't a desperate hunt. It was practice, a rhythm, a test of reflexes, and even if no meal was caught, knowledge moved forward. A few elders settle near the fire again, this time with a stick and a flat stone. One begins carving softly, explaining something in slow, rhythmic tones. You don't catch the words, but the tone is soothing, like a bedtime story for adults. Later you'll learn they were describing a path of stars, a dreaming track, a tale older than any written book. These aren't just stories, they're maps, laws, lessons. You listen, even though the language drifts over your head like smoke. And as your eyelids grow heavier, the fire crackles a little louder, as if in rhythm with your thoughts. Then, in a moment of quiet humour, someone sneaks behind you and plops a kangaroo tail, raw and heavy, into your lap. You yelp, laughter explodes. This time you laugh too. It's gross, but it's also kind of a welcome. Things are shifting. Whisper 1 in the comments below if this tale charms your heart. Or 2 if it sends shivers down your spine. You're given a job. Not a serious job, mind you. No one is trusting you with spears or cooking fires just yet, but a task nonetheless. You're going to help carry water from a nearby soak. Easy, refreshing, maybe even a chance to redeem yourself from your earlier stick-related fiasco. A young girl hands you a shallow bark container. It's lightweight, smooth, and still faintly damp. She carries one too, twice the size, and balances it on her head with the ease of someone who's done this since before she could walk. You, meanwhile, look like you're about to deliver soup in a colander. The path to the waterhole is winding, dusty, and alive with motion. Cicadas drone like a static radio in your skull. Lizards flee at your footsteps, skittering across stones that radiate heat like cast-iron pans. The girl doesn't talk much. She glances at you occasionally with a grin that reads somewhere between "you're doing great" and "you're lucky I'm patient." When you arrive, the soak isn't what you expected. No crystal-clear spring, no babbling brook. Just a low, muddy depression ringed by reeds and shaded by stringy trees. The surface is still, barely disturbed by the occasional insect skating across it like it's glass. You crouch, dip your container carefully, and immediately knock mud into it. The girl doesn't say a word, just makes a tiny noise, and shows you how to angle the bark to skim the cleanest layer. You try again, and this time it works. Kind of. Your arm's already sore, and you've somehow managed to get water up your sleeve. It's fine. You're adapting. Sort of. On the walk back, the water sloshes out with every awkward step. Your arms wobble, your balance fails. You end up wearing more than half of your load by the time you reach camp again. But the girl smiles and gives a small clap when you set the half-full vessel down without spilling the last drop. Progress. Wet but real. The day rolls forward in warm waves. You start to notice how people communicate here, not by dominating conversations, but by not speaking unless there's something worth saying. It's the kind of silence that has texture. That means things. You're not used to it. Back home, silence is awkward. Here, it's intentional, comforting. And yet, under that quiet, you can feel the web of observation around you. You're being assessed constantly. No one's testing you with words, but they're watching how you carry yourself, how you listen, how often you interrupt. Spoiler, you interrupt too much. Later, you're brought to a clearing dotted with termite mounds. They look like baked mud castles, some almost as tall as you. You're handed a stick and told to dig. You ask, for what? But no answer comes, just a head tilt and a smile. So you dig. It's hard, dry work. Termites are masters of construction, and their homes aren't going down without a fight. Eventually you crack through a section, and the mound explodes into wriggling life. Thousands of tiny legs and antennae pour out like grains of rice with attitude. You leap back, flailing. The others chuckle gently, not unkindly. Then someone reaches in and pulls out a dark, sticky lump. Tree resin. It's used to start fires, patch tools, even seal wounds. You had no idea that termites guarded treasure. And just like that, something shifts again. What looked like mud is now medicine. What seemed like pest control is survival strategy. Scholars still debate how early Aboriginal groups mapped resources like this across such massive landscapes. Were these termite mounds communal memory banks? Did each clan have a resin map etched in song or gesture? The answers aren't easy. because most of the records weren't written. They were sung, danced, remembered, and many are still guarded knowledge. Someone presses a bit of resin into your palm. It's warm, tacky, and smells faintly of pine and smoke. You feel oddly honoured, like you've been handed a flammable secret. Then, without warning, someone else points skyward and utters a word you don't know. Everyone looks up. A wedge-tailed eagle circles overhead, its wings slicing slow arcs through the clouds. The group goes quiet, reverent. You do too. Back home, a bird is just a bird. Here, it's a message, a story, a relative maybe, not to be dismissed. As the eagle glides out of sight, a quiet song begins, low and rhythmic, carried more in breath than voice. You listen. You don't understand the words, but you feel them. They rise from the earth, not the tongue. It's in this moment you begin to sense just how deep this world goes. You're not just visiting a different place, you're visiting a different logic, a different time signature. A camp elder walks by and looks at your muddy shirt, your sweaty face, your bark container now resting beside the fire. They nod. And somehow, that nod means more than any sentence ever could. You're finally invited to sit with the elders, not by speech, no fanfare, no official ceremony. Just a space left open on the log, close to the smoking embers, where the oldest among them gather. You hesitate for a heartbeat, then shuffle into place, legs crossed, back aching already from the posture. They don't look at you, not directly. Instead, they look out across the bush, eyes half-lidded against the sun. Their hands are busy. One is rolling a thin reed between his fingers, another is smoothing a rounded stone over his knee. Their mouths stay mostly closed, but when they do speak, the words are like molasses, slow, deliberate, sun-warmed. You can't catch everything. Some words are in English, others are not. One voice rasps like dry leaves, another crackles like wood in a hearth. They're discussing the land, that much is clear, naming hills you've never seen and rivers that no longer run. The smoke from the eucalyptus leaves coils upward in thin silver spirals. It's not for warmth, it's for cleansing, for clarity. You breathe it in and immediately cough. Everyone pretends not to notice. Well, almost everyone. One elder lets out a breath that might be laughter. They pass around a piece of wood, shaped, smoothed, etched with grooves. A coolerman. You recognise it from pictures. A carrying dish, often used for food, water, even babies. It's old, the wood darkened by years of oil and ash. It's older than you, probably older than your country. You run your fingers along the carvings, careful not to appear too curious, too eager. One elder begins to tell a story. You lean in, trying to catch the cadence. It's about a serpent, massive, ancient, alive in the earth. It's slithered through the landscape, carving valleys, raising mountains. It's not just a myth. It's a blueprint, a map, a moral code. Scholars remain divided on whether such Dreamtime stories are literal or metaphorical, whether they recount geological memory, or serve purely spiritual functions. But to those around you, the story isn't a debate. It is the world. It made the world. You're reminded of a time you tried to explain a GPS to your grandmother, and she said, "That machine don't know where you're meant to be." Same energy here, except multiplied by 60,000 years. You hear a crack behind you and jump. Everyone else remains perfectly still. A goanna, long, scaly, indifferent, lumbers past the edge of the camp. You instinctively pull your feet in. The elders do not flinch. The lizard is acknowledged with a glance, a nod. It is known. It has its place. The conversation turns to another matter, stone. A particular stone, sharp and pale, found only in one part of the region. It's traded, they say, across great distances, for axes, for blades. You learn that some of the people here carry tools with stone, quarried hundreds of kilometres away. Not because they can't find local rock, but because that stone means something. Imagine your kitchen knives being family heirlooms, your garden spade carrying ancestral memory. Then someone gestures toward you. Not unkindly, just observant. You've been holding your hands wrong again. The stick you've picked up is sacred, or symbolic, or something not meant to be gripped like a baseball bat. You freeze, flush with embarrassment, and quickly place it down. Someone chuckles. But they don't shun you. Instead, The man beside you shows you how to hold it. Palms open, gentle, like it's alive. And suddenly you feel foolish for ever calling it a stick. A woman nearby begins humming, a sound so low it takes you a moment to notice. A kind of vibration more than melody. It winds around the smoke, wraps through the sunlight. It doesn't need lyrics. It's already older than language. You sit with it. With them. And though you understand maybe 5% of what's being said, you feel like a part of it anyway. You belong to the moment, even if not the culture. Then the topic shifts again, this time to the sky. They point out where the stars will be tonight, which ones belong to which creatures. You ask, how can you tell where they'll be before they come out? An elder pauses, looks at you, and then points to the trees, the wind, the birds, even the dryness of the soil. You nod like you understand. You don't. But the act of listening, that earns you something. Tap 3 in the comments below if this story makes you smile, or 4 if it leaves you chilled. As the smoke thickens and the sun slides lower, you realise the conversation isn't ending. It's just thinning. Like the smoke, it lingers, floats, and fades, but doesn't disappear. You stand to leave, legs numb, mouth dry, head buzzing with half-grasped wisdom. And as you walk away, you hear one of them say something softly in your direction. You don't know what it means, but somehow you think it might have been your name. You wake up the next morning with sand in your ears, smoke in your hair, and a beetle the size of a bottle cap crawling across your neck. You fling it off with a shudder and sit up, momentarily forgetting that your bed is just a mat on compacted dirt. Your back pops like a branch in the fire. Morning in the bush doesn't wait for your comfort. Already the camp is moving, soft feet padding over dry leaves, soft voices murmuring like wind over grass. You shuffle toward the fire, hoping to warm up. Instead, you're met with a task. Today, you're going to learn how to collect resin. Again. But this time, no termite towers. You're sent off with a man carrying a stone axe and a calm expression, like someone about to prune a bonsai, not mutilate a tree for sap. You follow. The walk is long, winding, and humid. Every few minutes your guide stops to listen. Not just casually, but with full body attention. You try to mimic it. All you hear is your own heartbeat, a screeching cockatoo in the distance, and the faint squelch of your boots. Yes, still damp. Eventually you reach the right tree, a grass tree. Its spiky green crown is like a punk haircut, and its trunk oozes dark, sticky resin. Your guide taps it, slices a bit with the stone axe, and gestures for you to try. You do. Badly. The resin smears across your fingers like tar. You touch your shirt without thinking. Big mistake. The resin doesn't come out. Ever. He nods approvingly, though. Not at your technique, but at your persistence. You're learning the way kids learn. Slowly. Messily. With frequent stickiness. Back at camp, the resin is added to a small pile near the fire. Later, it'll be heated and mixed with ash to make glue strong enough to fix a spearhead. You marvel at the idea. Natural epoxy. Older than your great-grandparents, born of insects, fire, and patience. By midday, the heat turns heavy, like someone draped a wool blanket over the whole sky. You duck into a shady spot beneath a lean-to. You've earned a break, or at least you think you have. That's when they bring you the stone blank. It's a chunk of hard stone, not yet shaped, not yet sharp. Your task? Turn it into a spear tip. You blink at the man handing it to you. He smiles with the unmistakable expression of someone who knows what you're about to go through. You're given a hammer stone, not a hammer. A round stone you're meant to use with control, not force. You try your first strike. Too hard. The flake flies off at a weird angle. The second hit's too soft. Nothing happens. The third, you chip off part of the tip. The wrong tip. Hours go by, or maybe minutes. You lose track. Sweat drips from your nose, your hands blister. Your patience cracks faster than the stone. Nearby, a teenage boy is working on his own spear tip. His hands move like a metronome. Tap, rotate, flake. Each edge emerges with eerie symmetry. His finished point is elegant, deadly, balanced. Yours looks like an angry potato. But he doesn't mock you. In fact, he leans over, gestures, shows you how to hold the hammerstone closer to the edge, how to angle your wrist. You try again. This time a flake comes off with a clean snap. It's not much, but it's right. You grin. He nods. For a brief, shining moment, You feel like a toolmaker. Sure, your spearhead is still more blob than blade, but it's a start. By now, your lap is full of sharp flakes. They glint in the sunlight. You're warned not to brush them off with your hand. They'll slice your skin like paper. You use a stick instead, feeling both cautious and absurdly proud. You're learning that mastery doesn't arrive with a lesson. It creeps in with repetition, with failure, with someone glancing over and saying, "Try again." You've never been so gently told you're doing it wrong so many times. Experts still debate how early Aboriginal stone tools compare to other Paleolithic technologies. Some argue that the precision flaking found here shows innovation on par with any ancient culture. Others wonder if the techniques evolved less for war and more for knowledge. The skill itself is a right, not just utility. There's no test, no checklist. But when your next flake comes off with a satisfying snap and leaves a razor-sharp edge, someone behind you gives a small clap. You pretend not to beam. By late afternoon, the light softens, turning golden. You carry your newly chipped spearhead to an older man who examines it like a jeweller inspecting a questionable diamond. He grunts, then places it next to the others. Not with them, next to them. There's a difference. And yet, you weren't dismissed. Your hands are dusty. Your clothes are stained with resin and smoke. Your arms ache. But when you look around at the other faces by the fire, no one seems to mind that you're still rough. You're not done, but you're not outside anymore either. Someone offers you a piece of roasted bush yam. You take it with both hands this time, the way they do. It's nearing dusk when they take you to the hunting grounds. Not for the real thing. You're not ready to wield anything sharper than a butter knife just yet. But for tracking practice, you're told to watch, to listen, to feel the land. The group heading out is mixed. Older boys, a few lean adults, and one very quiet elder, who doesn't say much but seems to move without touching the ground. You're tagging along, slightly behind, trying not to trip over shrubs or look too eager. Your homemade spearhead is safely left back at camp, where it can't embarrass you any further. The land stretches in every direction. Red soil veined with dry grass, scribbles of animal tracks etched like secret messages across the surface. Your companions barely look at the ground before changing direction. Left here, right there, pausing suddenly, eyes squinting into a clump of trees. You see nothing, until you do. Faint impressions in the dirt. 3-pointed shapes like chicken feet, only longer. A trail. They crouch. You crouch. They study the spacing, the depth, the way one print slides slightly on takeoff. You just try not to fall over. They say it's a wallaby, probably not far ahead, maybe injured. You nod as if you can tell. One boy mimics its movement, hopping silently across the clearing. Another points to the pattern of snapped twigs in a nearby bush. You would have walked past all of it. In fact, you did. But now it's starting to click. The land is not blank. It's written in code. And you're just beginning to sound out the alphabet. You try your hand at pointing out a track. It turns out to be from someone's sandal. Whoops. No one scolds you, but someone does pat your shoulder in a nice try kind of way. The sun's lower now, casting long shadows that turn every tree into a silent figure. Suddenly the elder raises a hand. Everyone freezes. You follow suit, breath caught in your throat. Then he whispers something you can't quite hear. The gesture follows. There, ahead, movement. It's not a wallaby. It's bigger, an emu. You freeze again, unsure what to do. The group crouches instinctively, moving into position like clockwork. No one is chasing it. That's not the point. This is about understanding the animal's habits, its routines. If you know its rhythm, you don't need to run. You just need to wait where it will be. You try to crouch. You snap a twig. The emu bolts like it's been fired from a cannon. Everyone exhales, somewhere between laughter and sighs. A younger boy looks at you like you just dropped a sacred relic in the toilet. You apologize with your eyes. He shrugs. Tomorrow, someone says. You'll see better. That night, back at camp, you're handed a surprise. An emu egg. It's massive, the size of a melon. Deep green, speckled, surprisingly heavy. You cradle it like it's priceless. You're told to help with the cooking. The fire is stoked, a small pit dug. You're supposed to crack the egg and pour it gently into a bowl of bark lined with warm coals. You hesitate. Crack an emu egg? You've only just been allowed near the fire. You tap it with a stick. Nothing. You tap again. Too hard. The egg splits and promptly explodes a slimy yellow splash all over your chest. Everyone within range jumps backward. A few gasp. One person laughs. A quiet one. Which somehow makes it worse. You stand there dripping with prehistoric omelette, eyes wide, face hot. Then a hand reaches forward with a cloth. You wipe your shirt. They wipe the bowl. And without a word, someone cracks another egg, this time properly, and shows you how it's done. Failure is tolerated here. Messiness is part of learning. And your dignity, while cracked like that egg, is not unsalvageable. As the emu yolk slowly cooks, you notice everyone has returned to their usual rhythms. The moment passed like weather. Brief, awkward, forgivable. Fun fact, emu eggs aren't just food. In some regions, their shells are used for carving, for ceremonial objects, even as drinking vessels. The dark green surface holds etchings beautifully. That one you just shattered could have been art. Oops. There's still debate among historians about how widespread egg gathering was versus egg harvesting. Did certain groups raise semi-tame birds? Or was it always wild foraging? The archaeological record is spotty, but oral history often points to a nuanced relationship. Not just hunting, but knowing, waiting, respecting. As the fire crackles and the scent of cooked egg fills the air, you're handed a slice of bark with your portion. It's soft, rich, warm. You take a bite. It tastes like something between custard and cornmeal, and even though you wore the first egg like a fashion statement, the second makes up for it. Someone claps you on the back. Another calls you egg boy. It sticks. You don't mind. The next task is simple in theory. Napping. Well, not exactly napping, but resting through the midday heat. What you'd expect to be the easiest part of your Aboriginal bush day. No foraging, no tool flaking, no egg catastrophes. Just a shaded spot, a bit of quiet, and time to relax. You stretch out beneath a tree with rough bark and long shadows. The earth beneath your mat is warm, but not hot. The cicadas have entered full blast mode, a chorus of buzzing that fills every crevice of the air. It's hypnotic. You begin to drift. And then something bites you. You bolt upright, slapping at your leg. Another sting. You scramble to your feet, flailing, twisting and discovering, too late, that you've laid yourself down directly on a trail of jackjumper ants. They're small, fast, and very angry. And now they're everywhere. You run in circles. You try to brush them off. You swear, internally and very silently, because yelling would only make it worse. But the itching, the burning, it's relentless. Eventually someone notices and calmly walks over with a bunch of crushed leaves. Without a word, they press the mash onto your bites. The sting subsides almost immediately. Relief washes over you, chased quickly by embarrassment. You've managed to turn a nap into an emergency. The person helping you says something soft. You don't understand the words, but their tone is unmistakable. You'll learn. You return to your spot next to the ant trail this time and sit cross-legged, swatting gently at the occasional stray insect and feeling profoundly humbled by the ecosystem. The others, still resting, still perfectly motionless. Some appear asleep, some simply watching the sky, blinking slowly. No one speaks. The silence isn't awkward, it's sacred, a kind of stillness that breathes. You try to join in, lowering your breathing, matching the rhythm of the wind through the grass. You don't sleep, but you come close. That counts. When the heat finally breaks, the camp begins to stir again. People stretch, yawn, and move toward various tasks. You're still scratching at your ankles, but no one comments. Someone hands you a digging stick. You're going gathering. At first, you assume this means wandering around, eyes peeled for fruit or edible leaves. But it's more strategic than that. You're heading out with a small group of women and older children, all carrying digging sticks, bark containers, and intimate knowledge of the landscape. The goal? Find bush onions, also known as yam daisies in some regions, small bulbs hidden underground, high in carbohydrates and surprisingly delicious when roasted. You follow closely, digging when others dig. Your first few attempts yield nothing but rocks and roots. Then finally you strike something different. You pull back the soil to reveal a bulb the size of a walnut, coated in red dust. You hold it up like it's treasure. A young girl gives you a thumbs up. It's one of the few hand gestures that translates clearly across cultures. The rhythm sets in. Dig, brush, extract, repeat. Soon, your bark dish has a modest collection of bulbs. Not bad for your first time. You learn to read the soil better, to look for the plant's subtle leaves, to feel the difference between root and rock with the tip of the stick. Fun tidbit. These tubers were once so abundant that they formed the dietary backbone for many communities. Colonization disrupted the delicate ecosystem, with sheep grazing wiping out fields of wild-growing food. But here, with practiced hands and patience, it's clear the knowledge never left. Scholars still debate the extent to which Aboriginal agriculture blurred with foraging. Was it semi-cultivation? Controlled burns and transplanting? The jury's out, but recent studies are giving more weight to what Indigenous groups have said all along. This land was managed, carefully, lovingly, long before fences and farms. Back in camp, the bulbs are roasted over hot stones. The smell is faintly sweet, earthy. You're handed one, skin split and steaming. You bite in. It's soft, almost buttery, with a mild flavour that somehow tastes like effort itself. You realise something as you eat. There is no single star of the meal. Every ingredient has a journey. Every bite is a collaboration between the land and the people who know how to read it. And you? You helped. A little. As the sun tilts westward and the scent of roasted yams drifts lazily across camp, you find yourself sitting cross-legged near the fire again. Not because someone told you to, but because it feels right. Someone tosses you another bulb. You catch it without fumbling. Progress. This evening, things are different. The usual rhythms of camp, cooking, carving, fire stoking, slow down as a soft energy begins to hum beneath everything. People wash their faces with water dipped from bark dishes, hair is combed, ashes brushed across foreheads, and someone begins arranging ochre on a flat rock. Tonight there's going to be a dance. You're not told this directly, you simply notice the signs. Movements become quieter, more deliberate. Children stop roughhousing. The elders begin humming, not songs exactly, but something between tone and breath. The sun is nearly gone, but no one's rushing to finish dinner. They're preparing in a way that makes you feel underdressed, even in your sweaty, stained shirt. Someone hands you a piece of red ochre wrapped in bark. A small nod says, "You know what to do? You don't, but you try." You smear it across your cheeks, unevenly. A kid walks by and laughs, then uses a thumb to smear it properly, one confident streak on each cheekbone. There. Now you look slightly less like a clumsy tourist with face paint. As twilight deepens, you're guided toward a clearing where the earth has been swept flat and clean. A few stones mark the edges. Beyond that, only gum trees and stars. The women and children sit at the outer edge. The men take places by the fire pit, now glowing softly with fresh coals. Everyone is waiting, watching. A hush settles over the space, not the silence of uncertainty, but of anticipation. Then it begins. A low thump, a clap, another clap, a rhythm builds. Two dancers enter, decorated with stripes of white ochre, chest bare, eyes fierce. Their movements are sharp, grounded, echoing creatures. Lizards, birds, spirits. Their feet stamp patterns into the dust. Their hands slice the air in arcs and spirals. You watch, entranced. One dancer mimics a snake, shoulders rolling, hips coiling. Another becomes a kangaroo, bounding, pausing, sniffing the wind. The firelight paints everything in flickers of orange and black. The smoke curls like spirits rising. Then a moment of stillness. You feel it in your spine before it happens. Someone nudges you, points, you're being called forward. You panic, smile, point to yourself as if to say, "Me?" But the answer is clear. They want you to join the dance. Your brain screams, "You don't know the steps. You'll ruin everything." But your feet move anyway. You step into the clearing, heart pounding like the clapsticks. The dust feels soft under your soles. The heat of the fire kisses your face. You glance at one of the younger dancers. He gestures. Bend knees, arms wide, mimic. So you do. Your first movements are stiff. Wrong. You bounce when you should glide. You flap when you should crouch. And worst of all, you forget to breathe. The circle watches. A few smiles. A few head tilts. Not cruel, just observing. You attempt a crouch-turn combo that goes entirely sideways. Literally, you almost trip into the fire. Laughter erupts, but it's not harsh. Not mockery. It's the kind of laughter reserved for toddlers who wear shoes on the wrong feet. You're trying. That's enough. An elder claps. You freeze. Then, with a grin, he steps forward and begins a slow rhythm you can follow. Just a step, a turn, a clap. You mirror it. This time, you don't fall. The dance continues. Others join. The tempo rises, then softens. The stories unfold in body and breath. You understand nothing, but also somehow everything. It's not performance. It's a memory, a teaching, a language you're only beginning to hear with your skin. Fun tidbit. Many Aboriginal dances serve multiple purposes: ritual, education, social bonding. Some are restricted to certain ages or genders, others passed only through specific lines. The movements can encode stories of landscape, kinship, even seasonal change. It's culture choreographed in the dust. Experts still debate how much of the earliest known rock art, those stick figure dancers with exaggerated limbs, reflect actual dance traditions or symbolic gestures. Some scholars suggest they're maps of ceremony, others think they're the ceremony itself, preserved in pigment. Tonight, though, there's no debate. This dance is alive, and you're a small, awkward part of it. As the final rhythm fades and the smoke curls high into the dark sky, you step back, breathless, sweaty, exhilarated. Someone hands you a gourd of water, you gulp it gratefully. It tastes faintly of eucalyptus. You're not a dancer, not yet. But tonight, you moved with the group. And tomorrow, well, you may not trip into the fire this time. Morning brings another new lesson, one that at first feels deceptively simple. Digging. Not the precision kind from yesterday's bush onion harvest. This is about finding something a bit trickier. Sand goannas. You're handed a longer, heavier digging stick this time, its tip charred for strength, its shaft smoothed from years of calloused hands. The elder who gives it to you gestures toward the dry, shimmering expanse of sandy soil beyond the trees and says just one word. You don't know what it means, but the tone is clear. Let's go. You walk behind a trio of women and a child, all barefoot, all moving with the sort of light-footed confidence that makes your every step feel like an insult to the land. They spread out in silence, eyes scanning the ground like detectives at a crime scene. You do the same, squinting, pretending to know what you're looking for. Then one of the women stops. She kneels, touches a barely there depression in the sand, no more obvious than the print of a fallen leaf, and begins to dig. The sand here is soft but deep, dry on top, cool and moist underneath. She works methodically, scooping and probing, her stick moving in slow spirals. You try to help, you're too fast. You hit something that makes a dull thunk, not the goanna, just a root. But the way the woman glances at you says you might as well have tried to dig up someone's front door. She hands you a smaller digging stick. Maybe this one's more your speed, her raised eyebrow seems to say. Eventually a shout. The child has found a trail, a wavy line, barely visible, curving across the sand like a ripple. They kneel and begin to follow it. You join, marvelling at how what looked like empty ground suddenly becomes a busy highway. This trail, you learn, was left at dawn. The goanna burrowed beneath the sand, leaving subtle air pockets and faint collapse marks. It could be anywhere now, under your feet, under that rock 20 meters away. You begin to dig, slowly this time, carefully. And after several minutes of careful prodding, the sand gives. A flick of movement, a tail. Everyone backs up slightly. One woman reaches in, calm as anything, and lifts out a thick-bodied lizard, speckled, strong, annoyed. It wriggles once, then goes still. You stare at it in awe. It's heavier than it looks. Its skin is dry and rough like sun-bleached bark. Its claws are surprisingly long. This is lunch. You didn't catch it. But you helped, and for once, you didn't mess it up. Back at camp, the goanna is prepared for roasting. Not skinned, not filleted, just cleaned, stuffed with hot stones and buried under a bed of coals and ash. The smell that rises from the pit is unexpected, not unpleasant, something like oily chicken mixed with desert dust. You sit nearby watching the flames dance, stomach growling. It's been a long morning of digging and pretending not to pant. Someone offers you water, again in a hollowed gourd. You sip slower this time. You're learning. When the goanna is finally ready, the meat is pulled apart by hand. The texture is fibrous, a little chewy, a little gamey, but the flavour is deep, smoky, ancient, like something cooked the same way for 40,000 years. Fun fact, Sand goannas, also called Varanus gouldi, have been a staple in many Aboriginal diets. Their fat is prized not just for taste, but for ritual use, healing salves, and as a valuable trade item. Some researchers argue that the detailed tracking required to find them reveals an extraordinarily high level of ecological intelligence, arguably more advanced in its context than any written map. Others debate how these skills were passed down, through practice, songlines, or both. The jury's still out. But as you sit there, licking goanna grease off your fingers and squinting into the coals, you don't need a study to know this was knowledge earned, not downloaded. Later, a child waddles over with the tail, still warm, still crispy. They offer it to you. It's a test, a joke, maybe even a bit of both. You bite it. It's crunchy, salty, a little tough, and somehow delicious. They laugh. You chew. And this time, you laugh with them. No egg on your shirt, no ants in your socks, no spear in your lap. Just goanna tail, roasted right, shared under open sky. You've been warned. Making fire the old way is going to test you. This morning's lesson isn't about gathering or cooking or tracking. It's about creating something elemental. Heat from friction, flame from dust. There's no lighter, no matches, just you, 2 pieces of wood, and the unforgiving laws of physics. They hand you a fire drill set, a long dry spindle and a flat baseboard with a small notch cut into it. There's already a blackened groove, evidence that someone else has done this before. Successfully, you take the stick and begin spinning it between your palms, fast, too fast. The spindle jerks sideways. Your hands burn almost instantly. You fumble, drop the stick, and knock ash into your own lap. Your teacher says nothing, just picks it up, repositions it, and hands it back. This time, slower. You twist again, trying to keep the motion even. Your palms are already sweaty, which is not helping. The stick squeaks horribly. You can practically hear the fire gods laughing. Minutes pass. Nothing happens. A few curls of dust, some smoke, but no ember. Meanwhile, a teenage girl nearby watches with the calm, knowing expression of someone who could probably start a fire with a sideways glance. When you finally pause, panting and red-faced, she gently takes the drill and shows you. Her hands move in a rhythm that's almost meditative. Not fast, just steady. A soft hiss, a tiny wisp of smoke. She tilts the board. A coal rolls out, no bigger than a beetle. She transfers it to a bundle of dry bark and grass, cradles it gently, and blows. The bundle glows. Then, flame. Just like that. You stare, awestruck, ash-smudged, defeated. She hands you back the spindle with a cheeky grin. Your turn, fire wizard. You try again. This time with more rhythm, less panic. Your arms tremble. Your thumbs feel like someone took sandpaper to them, but you get it to smoke. You even get a faint glow. And though the coal dies before it catches, someone claps for the effort. Turns out making fire isn't just about wooden effort. It's about patience and technique, and not being drenched in sweat while trying to ignite dry grass. Fun tidbit, Aboriginal firemaking varies by region. Some groups used hand drills like this one, others employed fire ploughs, rubbing a hardwood stick along a groove in softwood. In both methods, it's not strength that wins, it's rhythm, breath, and knowing the materials like an old friend. Experts still debate just how long humans have been using fire in this part of the world. Some archaeological sites suggest controlled burns going back 50,000 years or more. Was it just for cooking, or did fire shaping literally terraform the Australian landscape? Either way, the controlled use of fire here, what researchers call fire stick farming, has influenced ecosystems for millennia, whole forests shaped by smoke and spark. That little ember you just failed to nurture, it once fed entire cultures. You spend the rest of the morning nursing your sore hands with a mix of amusement and mild shame. Your shirt now carries another scar, this one from the scorch mark left by a coal you dropped while trying to blow it to life. You smell like burned bark and sweat. But somehow, you're grinning. Later that afternoon, someone invites you to collect more tinder. You jump at the chance. Finally, a task you might not fail completely. You're sent with 2 others, a quiet boy and an elderly woman with knees that pop every time she squats. They teach you how to find dry bark in shady spots, how to peel strips from paperbark trees without harming them, and how to test grass bundles for burn readiness by crinkling them next to your ear. Crinkle equals good. Soggy equals nope. You fill your bark dish with a respectable pile of tinder and return triumphantly, only to realise that everyone else has already started another fire. Still, they take your bundle with a nod. No wasted effort. Everything has a use, even if it arrives late. As twilight falls, the camp glows again with 3 small fires, pale orange orbs surrounded by shadows and gentle talk. Children roast something on skewers. You hope it's not another goanna tail, though you wouldn't say no this time. Someone passes you a piece of roasted tuber. You eat it in silence, watching the flames dance. You didn't start them, but you helped, and that's something. This afternoon, things take a turn for the complicated. You're brought into the women's camp by accident, or maybe by curiosity. Either way, it happens fast. One moment, you're chasing a child through the shade of a paperbark grove, laughing, out of breath, and the next, you're squarely in the middle of a circle of women, all seated, working, and very much not expecting you. Silence. Not the warm, glowing kind you've come to appreciate, but the sharp kind. Eyes glance, hands pause. You freeze, realizing your mistake. You're not supposed to be here, not uninvited, not like this. A woman closest to you raises an eyebrow, then calmly gestures toward the edge of the circle, a silent invitation to sit but not to speak. You oblige, gingerly lowering yourself onto the sand like a cat who just knocked over a vase. The women are working with reed bundles, twisting and coiling them into shapes, baskets, belts, cords. One woman is fashioning what looks like a sling, the kind used for carrying babies or bundles of foraged food. The texture of the reeds, dry, grassy, golden, is hypnotic. You watch. They don't tell you to leave, but they also don't explain anything. You've entered a space defined by doing, not teaching. You try to help. You pick up a bundle, mimic the motions. It starts well enough, fold, twist, pull, but after 5 minutes your creation looks like a failed macrame project from a kindergarten craft day. You gently place it back. No one says a word. Then a younger girl hands you a new strand. She doesn't smile, but her eyes sparkle. You try again. This time the rhythm comes easier. Your fingers stop resisting the dryness. You start to understand the logic, the way the reeds coil naturally, the tension needed to hold a shape, and just as you're starting to feel confident, one of your loops snaps apart with a dramatic twang, and your basket explodes into reeds. You try to laugh it off, but no one laughs. One woman just sighs softly, reaches over and shows you, without a word, where you went wrong. The knot. Always the knot. It's humbling, but it's also generous. You sit for a long time, surrounded by the scratch of reeds, the rustle of cloaks, and the occasional giggle from a child nearby who clearly thinks you're very funny to watch. Eventually someone breaks the silence with a story. Not loud, not formal, just a stream of words offered into the afternoon heat. You don't know the language, but the gestures say plenty. It's about 2 sisters, about a dingo, about a stolen yam and a long chase. There's humour in it. You can hear it in the cadences. A woman makes a dingo face. Another mimes running. You laugh. This time, they laugh with you. Then someone passes you a gourd. Not of water, of ochre, pale yellow. They smear a bit on your arm. You don't ask why. You just accept it. Fun tidbit. Ochre has been used across the continent for millennia. Not just as decoration, but as medicine, as ritual, as practical sunscreen. Different colours hold different meanings. Yellow often relates to the sun, to sacred objects, to knowledge passed from elder to child. Scholars still debate whether ochre use began with body paint or burials. Some of the oldest burials in Australia, over 40,000 years old, include ochre-stained bones. Was it art? Was it protection for the soul? Or just mosquito repellent that evolved into something spiritual? The theories are many. The certainty is few. What is certain is that it means something. Even now. Even on your arm. Eventually a woman stands and gestures that it's time to move. You rise, unsure if you're supposed to follow. She nods, just once. You trail behind the group as they carry their baskets and bundles toward a grove of trees heavy with fruit. It turns out you've wandered into a gathering expedition. The trees are covered in small plum-like fruit. Sweet kwandongs. The women fan out, checking branches, shaking limbs, laughing when one fruit bonks someone on the head. You join in, collecting fallen fruit into a bark bowl. You eat one. It's tart, dry, strange, but refreshing. Then, A voice calls from the edge of the grove, one of the men. You recognize the tone. Something's not right. The women glance at one another. One gestures for you to stay put. You watch from the trees as the adults gather near a smouldering log. A snake, curled in the shadows. Not a deadly one, luckily. Just a reminder. When they return, the mood is calm again, but you sense the edge that wasn't there before. The bush is not passive. It remembers. It reacts. As the sun begins to lower, you carry your basket, half full, slightly lopsided, back toward camp. No one claps, no one praises, but no one sends you away either. You are part of it, for a while, and when someone offers you a roasted kwandong by the fire later that night, you accept it like a handshake. Tonight is full moon. You know this not because anyone told you, but because the entire camp has shifted. The fires are arranged in a circle, ashes being swept with deliberate care. People wear markings of white ochre now, bold stripes on chests, dots on foreheads, lines drawn from jaw to collarbone like whispers made visible. You've seen ceremony before on TV, in museum exhibits, in heavily edited cultural showcases. But this is different. This breathes. You're not told to participate. You're not told to sit. You simply notice a spot empty near the edge and lower yourself there. It feels like the right thing to do. The moon climbs slowly above the trees, massive and yellow, as if it too is watching. A hush falls, not silence exactly, but a quieting. The cicadas fade. The fire speaks softer. Even the breeze moves like it's being polite. Then tap, tap, clap. The sound begins, not loud, not demanding. Clapsticks, two wooden pieces struck with steady rhythm, like a heartbeat long practiced. Then voices, low and resonant. Not lyrics, but sounds that feel like meaning. They rise, fall, circle one another. A didgeridoo joins, its hum deep enough to shake your bones. The vibrations crawl across the earth, into your legs, up your spine. The dancers enter. Their bodies gleam with sweat and ochre. Their steps match the clapsticks. Their expressions are serious, almost trance-like. They don't just dance, they become. One is a crow, another a possum, another something older, stranger, maybe spirit. The movements are clipped, precise, echoing animal, storm, fire. You try not to blink. Then, unexpectedly, a child stands. Just one. Barefoot, tiny, covered in ochre dots holding a branch of eucalyptus leaves. They dance too, not like the others, clumsy, adorable. But the circle welcomes it. There is laughter, soft, warm. Not mockery, belonging. You feel something stir in your chest, a kind of longing. Not just to join, but to understand. Not to study, but to remember, as if this knowledge once lived in your bones too and simply forgot how to speak. You close your eyes, letting the rhythm guide your breath. This ceremony, you'll later learn, is part of a lunar cycle, a story played out over months. This night's dance honours a spirit ancestor who once brought fire to the people, who travelled across the sky with a tail of flame, who taught the animals how to dance. The smoke rises for him. The rhythm is his name. Fun tidbit. Aboriginal ceremonial dances vary widely across nations, but many follow lunar calendars. The moon governs timing, emotion, behaviour. Full moons mark transitions, of people, of seasons, of spirit obligations. Some dances are public. Others, secret, sacred, never seen by outsiders. Scholars remain divided on how much of this knowledge can be reconstructed through anthropology alone. Many elders say plainly it can't. You have to be there. You have to listen right. Tonight you try. Someone passes you a bundle of leaves, burning softly. The smoke curls sweetly. Gum leaves and resin. You wave it toward your chest, imitating those around you. It's not just ritual. It's hygiene. It's blessing. It's both. As the night deepens, the songs grow quieter, longer, deeper. You begin to lose track of time. At some point you realize everyone is watching a figure in the center, an elder, wrapped in a heavy cloak, his face hidden. He speaks in slow, measured syllables. Everyone listens. You do too, even though the words mean nothing. But the rhythm, the weight, that you understand. And when he raises a handful of dust and lets it fall, one slow stream, you feel your breath catch. It's not just dust. It's time. It's memory. It's what everything's made from. The ceremony closes with a long silence. No announcement, no applause, just the moon watching, the embers pulsing, the sound of someone exhaling near your shoulder. You walk back to your sleeping mat later without saying a word. No one speaks. They don't need to. The wind moves through the trees like a sigh, and for the first time since you arrived, the bush doesn't feel like a stranger. It feels like a story, and you've just turned the page. The ground is still warm from the fire when morning comes, but you wake with a crick in your neck and a vague sense that your dreams were full of lizards and echoing footsteps. The ceremony's energy hasn't quite left you. It clings like mist. The camp is quieter today. People move more slowly, more deliberately, as if honouring the tail end of something sacred. You stretch, shuffle to the fire, and sit. No one speaks right away. That's fine. You're learning the rhythm. Then someone nudges you with a stick, not roughly, but with a kind of get-up rookie energy. It's time to go digging again. This time, the target is smaller. Witchetty grubs. You try not to react. You've heard of them. Creamy fat larvae that live inside tree roots, protein-packed and famously squishy. People eat them raw, or roasted, or still wriggling. You're not sure which version is planned for today, but none of the options sound like a Michelin-starred meal. The digging team is compact. One elder woman, a teenage boy, and you. You're led out past the camp, through a dry creek bed where gnarly roots curl from the banks like ancient fingers. The soil here is soft enough to dig, but hard enough to be exhausting. They show you how to spot the signs. Bubbles in the bark, tiny holes where the wood weeps. The grubs live deep. You'll need the right stick, the right angle, the right kind of patience. You begin. After about 10 minutes of sweaty digging, you found nothing but splinters and a very angry beetle. The boy next to you pauses, makes a soft clicking sound, then slides his stick into a hollow, a flick, a pull. He lifts out a grub the size of his thumb. It wriggles. You try not to grimace. He passes it to the elder, who inspects it, nods, then hands it to you. You stare at it. It stares at you. You hold it gently, trying not to squeeze, not to drop it, and certainly not to look like you're afraid of it. It's heavier than you expected, almost meaty. Someone makes a gesture you really hope doesn't mean eat it raw. Thankfully, it's just a signal to keep digging. You try again. Eventually you hit pay dirt, another grub, smaller this time, tucked inside a softened root. You lift it out like a jewel. It's kind of pale gold, kind of majestic in a way. Back at camp, a fire is rekindled. The grubs are placed on flat stones beside the coals. No seasoning, no fuss. They curl slightly as they cook, popping faintly, their skin crisping like the world's weirdest popcorn. You're offered one. Everyone watches. You take a breath, close your eyes, and bite. It's nutty, creamy, a little smoky. It's not bad. You chew slowly, nod, and, without fanfare, take a second one. Someone claps once quietly. Fun fact, witchetty grubs have sustained people in the desert for generations. High in protein and fat, they're one of the bush's most reliable and nutritious resources. The name witchetty is actually a colonial misinterpretation of the original words used to describe the stick and the grub. And no, they're not worms, they're larvae of moths, slightly less horrifying depending on your perspective. Experts still debate whether grubs were primarily foraged by women or children in specific regions, or if there was broader involvement. Some oral histories suggest they were considered delicacies, even spiritual food. Others say it's just lunch, depends who you ask. After your third grub, you set the stick down and sigh. You've done it. You've eaten the bush's squirmiest gift and lived to tell the tale. Later, someone jokingly sketches a grub shape in the sand beside your mat. It's got a little smiley face. You laugh. You lie back, full of protein, arms streaked with dust, face painted with the faint pride of not gagging in front of your hosts. The sky overhead is wide and pale. The gum leaves whisper. And for once, you feel like you didn't just witness the day, you earned it. By now, you're starting to pick up a rhythm. Wake with the smoke, follow the eyes, mimic the hands, try not to ruin anything. It's a bit like learning to dance without music. You move based on breath and glance instead of beats and bars. Today, they send you to practice firecraft again. Not starting fire this time. You've already proven your blister-prone hands aren't quite there yet. But maintaining one. Sounds easy. It's not. Keeping a fire alive in the open bush is a quiet science. The wind shifts. The embers sink. The bark curls in unpredictable ways. You're given the task of tending the smallest of the 3 cooking fires, while a group roasts yam tubers and snake meat beside it. Your job: don't let it go out. You sit, poke a little too enthusiastically, then back off. You add bark. Too much. The smoke billows and someone coughs, shooting you a look. Okay, smaller pieces, lower angle. Use that curved stick to rake embers into the right spot. You're starting to get it. Slowly. Like a child learning to ride a bike by tipping over several times without falling hard enough to quit. You lose the flame once, just for a moment. But that moment counts. The coals flicker, the orange dims, and a woman calmly comes over, tilts a bit of dry grass inward, breathes low and steady, and whoomph, flame returns. She hands you the stick again, doesn't speak, doesn't smile, but there's no scolding either. She expects you to watch, so you do. She's using rhythm, not randomness. The way she feeds the fire follows a cycle, a story. You realise suddenly, this fire isn't just for heat, it's for continuity, for marking time. You sit straighter, watch the breeze, adjust for it. Feed the embers with the thinnest bits first. After an hour, someone passes you a roasted tuber and says one word: warm. You take it with both hands. It's soft and slightly sticky, tastes faintly sweet. Not bad for someone who almost smothered the cooking fire. While chewing, you overhear a quiet conversation. Not words you understand, but tone. Someone says your name, or at least a nickname they've given you. The same one a kid muttered earlier after your failed attempt at leaf weaving. Sticky fingers! You raise your hand in mock triumph. A few chuckles. Okay, you'll take it. Later that day, you're handed a new challenge, preparing Spinifex resin. Not the sticky tree kind. This is different. Spinifex grass is everywhere out here. Tough, spiky, dry as paper. You're told to gather a bundle, then another, then more. You bring it back, arms scratched and eyes watering, and watch as it's heaped onto a stone platform. The next step is strange. The grass is burned, but gently, just enough to melt the resin without destroying it. A slow-motion smoulder. Then it's gathered into globs while still hot, pressed, kneaded, rolled. It smells sharp, earthy, a little like pepper and smoke. They hand you a wad to knead. It's like sticky Play-Doh that tries to bite back. Hot, fast-drying, tricky, and yet magical. With this resin, they attach stone blades to wooden shafts. They seal cracks. They waterproof bark bowls. It's bush glue, natural, powerful, renewable. Fun tidbit: Spinifex resin was one of the first known composite adhesives used by humans anywhere on Earth. Some archaeologists believe Aboriginal groups were creating chemically stable glues tens of thousands of years before anything similar appeared in Europe or Asia. Scholars still debate just how widespread these methods were. Was it shared knowledge or sacred technique? Was the resin part of trade networks? The evidence suggests both. Some Spinifex-based resins have even been found far from where the grass grows, carried by hand across deserts, exchanged like gold. You watch as your glob cools. You try shaping it. It hardens too fast. You burn your thumb. A boy across from you holds up his own, perfectly rounded, perfectly smooth. You hold yours up next to his. It looks like a melted raisin. You both laugh. He shows you the trick. Rotate it. Press slowly. Wet your fingers just a touch. You try again. This time, it's closer. Still lumpy, but functional. The others nod. Progress. As the sun dips and shadows stretch across the ground, your resin blob is placed in the tools pile, not with the best, but beside them. That evening, while watching the fire glow and the smoke rise, you notice something. You haven't spoken English all day, not because you couldn't, but because everything you needed to say, you managed without it. With gestures, with nods, with doing, and maybe, just maybe, that's how you're finally starting to listen. Today is full of stories, not the bedtime kind, and definitely not the kind you find written down. These are stories carved into scars, whispered through symbols, tapped into rhythm. Today you're going to learn, or try to, how skin can speak. It begins in the shade of a broad ghost gum, where several elders sit in a semicircle. The younger people keep a respectful distance. No one tells you to come closer, but there's space left open. You take the hint. One of the elders, an older man whose voice sounds like walking over gravel, begins speaking slowly, deliberately, his words strung out like beads. You don't understand the language, but the cadences are almost hypnotic. You catch one word repeated, ngapa. Someone once told you it means water. You nod like that means something now. Then comes the ochre, a bowl of it, deep red, ground to dust mixed with animal fat until it gleams like wet rust. The elder dips his fingers into it and draws lines across his own arm, slowly, methodically, down the shoulder, across the chest, looping back toward the wrist. You recognize the pattern, not the meaning, but the intention. It's a map. Then he points to another man's scars, faint white ridges that wind around his ribcage like a snake coiled mid-motion. They aren't random. You can see that now. They match the ochre lines. The elder lifts your arm gently, not asking, not demanding, just offering, and with a thick, warm finger, he begins to draw. A spiral on your upper arm, a dash across your forearm, a crescent near your elbow. The ochre is cool. It smells like earth and iron. You sit still, unsure whether this is instruction or initiation, or both. The boy beside you, the one who helped you shape resin yesterday, leans in and whispers, "This is your journey?" He taps the spiral, where you came from, then the dash, where you are, finally the crescent, where you're going. You look down at the markings, realizing suddenly that this is more than decoration. It's a story being pinned to your skin, your place in it. Fun tidbit, Aboriginal body art, especially scarification, was often used to signify stages of life, clan identity, spiritual responsibility, or ceremonial roles. These marks were not ornamental. They were archives of the self written in pain and pigment. There is still debate among anthropologists about how universal the meanings were. Did every region use spirals the same way? Were they maps of dreaming tracks or symbolic metaphors for weather and animals? Some scholars say the ambiguity is intentional. Only those meant to know will understand. And maybe that's the point. Later, another elder sits across from you with a series of objects laid out. A carved stone, a piece of shell, a strip of possum fur, and a handful of small bones painted white. He tells a story, this time in a mix of English and his native tongue. It's about two brothers who chased a spirit fish upstream, stealing fire along the way. The fish turned into a constellation. The fire became language. Each object in front of him represents part of the tale. The stone, the riverbed, the shell, the glint of fish scales, the fur, the warmth of stolen fire, the bones, the silence left behind. He taps each item as he speaks, passing it to you. You touch each one in turn, trying to feel what he feels. When he finishes, he sits back and looks at you, not with expectation, but with calm. Then he says, "Now tell it." You freeze. What? You? Tell his story? But the others are nodding, encouraging, not waiting for perfection, just presence. So you begin. You stumble. You point to the wrong object first. You forget what the fur represented and say blanket instead of fire. But they listen. Patiently. They smile. Not at you. With you. When you finish, someone passes you a small reed flute. They nod. You don't know how to play it, but you bring it to your lips and blow gently. A soft, reedy note wavers out. A second. A third. You're not making music. You're making memory. And as the fire crackles beside you and the ochre on your arm begins to dry into red dust, you realize this day didn't teach you a story. It made you part of one. The lesson today begins with a warning. You're told, by gesture, not words, to walk softly. A hand hovers just above the ground, palm downward, pressing the air. You mimic it instinctively, lowering your feet, shortening your stride. The bush doesn't like heavy footsteps today. You're on the edge of camp in drier scrubland, and your job is simple. Gather wood. Not just any wood. Wood from a specific tree, curved just right, aged just enough, hollow but strong. It's meant for tools, for shaping, for making into something useful. But it's not just about finding the tree. It's about not stepping on a snake. Your guide this time is a man with eyes that miss nothing. He's quiet, but he watches everything, not just the earth beneath his feet, but the leaves above, the shadows between bark, the sudden pause in a bird's call. You follow behind, trying not to be loud. You're failing. Your shoes crunch. Your shirt snags. A loose pebble slides underfoot and nearly sends you tumbling. The man stops, turns, tilts his head. You hear that? You pause, listen. Silence. Then, a soft rustle, low to the ground. Not wind. He points. At first, you see nothing. Then, it moves. A carpet python, maybe 2 meters long, coiled beneath a log, its skin patterned like dappled sunlight, blending perfectly with the fallen bark. You take a step back. Too fast, too loud. The python lifts its head, tongue flicking, not striking, just aware. The man makes a soft hissing sound and raises his hand. Wait. You hold your breath. The python regards you for a long moment, then slowly lowers its head, uncoils, slides deeper into shadow. You exhale. Loudly, he chuckles, then nods toward your feet. Look where you step. You nod, vowing never to walk quickly again for the rest of your life. Fun fact, while many Australians fear snakes, Aboriginal groups often regard them with deep respect, not just as animals, but as totems, ancestors, or indicators of environmental shifts. The rainbow serpent, one of the most widespread dreaming beings, is both creator and destroyer. Some snakes are hunted, others are avoided entirely. Knowing the difference is crucial. Scholars remain divided on how snake species were categorized, by behavior, by region, or by dreaming lineage. Some argue it's ecological knowledge, others say it's spiritual cartography. Either way, you now carry a profound appreciation for anything that slithers silently through dry grass. Eventually you do find the right wood, a branch shaped like a question mark, bleached silver by the sun. The man tests its strength by bending it slowly, then knocks it twice against a rock. Satisfied, he hands it to you. Good for hook. You nod like you know what that means. Later, back in camp, you're shown how to strip the bark, shave the sides and sand it using a piece of rough stone. The curve is ideal for a throwing stick. Not quite a boomerang, but similar, designed for stunning game or digging into burrows. You take your time. The blade is stone, the handle is hand. There's no room for rush. As you shape it, the same man shows you how to trace shallow etchings, symbols that mark its use, its place. You don't copy exactly. He won't let you. But he guides your hands. You carve a small spiral. He nods. Your walk. Then taps the side of the stick, to remember. And suddenly, the curve of the wood feels like a record of the day. Not just the python, not just the stick, but you, learning not to walk like you own the ground. As dusk falls, you practice throwing with one of the children. He's better than you, obviously. His stick arcs through the air like a bird. Yours nosedives halfway. He grins and retrieves it for you each time like a retriever. Eventually you get it to turn, just once, but enough. You raise your arms in mock victory. The boy claps. The man nearby smiles. And when you place your stick beside your mat that night, you feel oddly proud, not because it's sharp, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. It holds your effort, your mistake, your moment with the snake. Tomorrow, you'll learn something else, but tonight you dream of quiet coils and curved wood, and your feet tread softer even in sleep. Bathing in the bush sounds peaceful in theory, a cool dip in a freshwater stream, maybe some birdsong, perhaps even a poetic splash beneath the trees. Reality, you're standing half naked in a shallow muddy creek, slapping at leeches and trying not to scream. It all began so simply. The sun was high, the heat thick and sticky. Someone gestured toward the trees and mimed washing their armpits. Message received. You needed a rinse, desperately. Days of smoke, dust, resin, ant bites, and goanna grease had baked themselves into your skin like a casserole of failure. So off you went, following a narrow trail past reeds and termite mounds. Your guide today is a wiry boy, maybe 11 years old, absolutely fearless. He walks ahead like the underbrush owes him favours, and you follow, branches scratching your arms and flies treating you like a moving buffet. You reach the creek. It's not much. Just a muddy trickle winding between smooth stones, its water the colour of weak tea. Still, it looks vaguely refreshing. You wade in. It's cold. Your feet sink into silt. Something brushes your ankle and you flail like a man being electrocuted. The boy doesn't even look back. You dunk your head. The water seeps through your hair. carrying away ash and heat. For a moment it is peaceful, then you feel it. A faint pull on your calf. You glance down. There it is, a leech, smiling at you with its entire body. You leap backward and trip into a deeper pocket of water, emerging like a soggy sandwich with panic in your eyes. The boy finally turns, sees the leech dangling from your leg and bursts out laughing. "Don't pull," he calls, gesturing wildly. Too late, you yank it off. A drop of blood appears. It doesn't hurt, but your pride is mortally wounded. He walks over, hands you a wad of crushed leaves and presses it against the bite. A faint sting, then relief. You're learning. Slowly, sometimes with blood. Fun tidbit: leeches, while unpleasant, were sometimes used medicinally by indigenous groups to relieve swelling or even help draw out infection. Not common, but not entirely revolting either, depending on who you ask. Experts still debate how much of indigenous ecological knowledge was medicinal versus ritual. Was the use of certain plants and treatments strictly practical or tied to ceremony? The truth is likely both. The line between medicine and magic here is porous, as it should be. After your impromptu bloodletting, you rinse off again, this time with more awareness, more respect for what lives under the water. You dab more of the leaf mixture on your other bites, and thank the boy, without words, just a nod. He nods back. On the walk back to camp, you're given a small bundle of paper bark. It's been soaked, then scented with crushed leaves. Eucalyptus, maybe tea tree. It's for wiping off, cooling the skin. You press it to your neck and instantly feel less like a disaster. When you return, a woman hands you a hollowed seed pod filled with a pale cream. You sniff it. Earthy, a little minty. She points to your arms, then mimics rubbing. You apply it. It soothes, instantly. Even the places you didn't realise were itching stop complaining. Your body, once a roadmap of discomfort, begins to relax. Later that evening, someone notices your leg and the leech bite. They tease you, of course, make a joke you don't understand but which gets a big laugh. You bow theatrically, embracing your new role as the camp's most dramatic bather. You eat your roasted yam with a little extra dignity that night. You faced a bush leech, and though you squealed like a startled parrot, you survived. That counts. Mealtime in camp is a communal affair. That much you've gathered. No one eats alone. No one hoards. No one dives into the pot before everyone else is ready. At least not without attracting some pointed side eyes and the kind of silence that hums with meaning. So when you find yourself holding a second helping of roasted snake and roasted bush tomatoes, and you're the only one eating, it dawns on you, you've made a mistake. Again. The moment is subtle. No one yells. No one snatches food from your hand. But the air shifts. Conversations dim. An older woman glances up and then back down deliberately. A boy across the fire chews slower. Someone coughs. You freeze. Spoon mid-air. This isn't about hunger. It's about place. Food is shared evenly. Roles are respected. Elders first, then others, by order of kinship or invitation. You just helped yourself like it was a buffet. You put the spoon down gently, then you pick up a bowl and offer it, meekly, to the elder sitting nearest. He doesn't take it, but he nods, just slightly. A minute later, someone hands you a yam chunk. Warm, software, a quiet peace offering, lesson received. Still, it eats at you. All the progress you thought you were making, the digging, the dancing, even surviving the leech, now feels like a sand sculpture washed out by one selfish scoop of snake meat. You sit in silence, letting the others finish before you. No one scolds you, but no one refills your bowl either. You're not shunned, you're just placed, gently. Fun tidbit, in many Aboriginal communities, food protocols are tied to kinship systems. Who gathers, who cooks, who eats first, all can depend on gender, age, ceremonial role, or spiritual association. These rules aren't arbitrary. They maintain balance, order, respect. To ignore them is to step out of rhythm with the group. Anthropologists have long debated whether these systems are religious, social, or ecological in origin. Most now agree. They're all three. They evolved to protect scarce resources, reinforce clan ties, and maintain harmony within groups whose survival depended on one another completely. Later, as the fire dies down and someone breaks out a small bowl of sweetened seeds for dessert, you're passed a portion. No commentary, just inclusion. You nod in thanks and take only a small bite. The boy beside you smirks. Learning, eh? You nod again. After the meal, the bowls are wiped with bark leaves, the fire poked until it glows low and steady. The elders gather for quiet talk and you're waved over. Not too close, but within earshot. They speak in their language, slow and layered, mixing stories with recent events. Someone mimics you reaching for seconds and the group chuckles. You laugh too, you can't help it. At least you're memorable. Then the conversation turns serious. A young man, maybe late teens, speaks for a while, gesturing toward the distance. A woman responds, slower, almost singing her answer. You don't understand it, but the weight is there. You later learn they were talking about someone who recently passed away. Not in camp, but far off. Their name isn't said, not out of disrespect, but out of reverence. The night folds around the fire like a blanket. You're reminded again, nothing here is rushed. Every act has rhythm, eating, speaking, sitting. Even silence has a role. Someone hands you a bundle of soft grass and bark, pillow material, a subtle message, bedtime. As you lie back on your mat, stars crowd the sky above you. It's so quiet you can hear a single ember crackle near your foot. You replay the moment, the second helping, the silence, the course correction, and you think, this isn't a place where mistakes go punished. They go noticed, and if you're lucky, they go forgiven. Night in the bush is never truly quiet. Not if you're new to it. Not if your ears haven't yet tuned to the song of distant insects, the deep-throated frogs croaking like rubber shoes, the sudden crack of a twig snapping under something you really hope is just a kangaroo. You lie on your mat staring at the sky. Stars have multiplied. They're not scattered. They're arranged. Like stories stitched into the darkness, some of them familiar, most not. You squint, trying to remember the constellations you learned as a kid. Orion, the Southern Cross. Here, they don't matter as much. They're not guides. They're characters. Someone once told you, Aboriginal astronomers mapped seasons, animal migrations, and dreaming stories through the stars, that they read the sky like a calendar, a compass, a memory palace. You believe it now, because as you lie here, the stars don't just twinkle, they speak. Somewhere beyond the trees, a howl carries on the wind. Not a wolf, obviously. Maybe a dingo, maybe something else. You sit up just a little. The fires are still glowing. Embers, really. Red eyes in the dark, steady and slow. A few silhouettes sit near one, voices murmuring low. Laughter, now and then. Not sharp, sleepy. You try to relax, but your mind is a theatre now, playing scenes of things with claws and teeth. What if something crawls into your blanket? What if that wasn't a dingo? You close your eyes. You open them again when something thuds in the distance. Your heart jumps. A nearby boy, barely 10, grunts from the mat beside you. Ruse, he says. Then turns over and immediately goes back to sleep. You wish you had his confidence. You listen harder. The thuds fade. The frogs continue. A soft drumming picks up. Very faint, very distant. It pulses once, twice, then fades like mist. What was that? You sit up again. Someone still awake by the fire. An elder, hunched and wrapped in a heavy cloak. He sees you, nods once, then gestures. Come closer. You wrap yourself in your cloak and pad across the dust. Feet soft now, learning. He doesn't say much, just pokes the coals and tosses in a stick that sizzles. You sit nearby, watching sparks float up like tiny spirits. Then he begins to speak, low, measured, words thick with time. He tells you, through words, through gestures, about a place called the Black Tree, where the wind doesn't blow, where smoke hangs like rope, where footsteps vanish. It's not a scary story, but it sticks. He gestures to a tree across the fire circle. Burned, he says, but not from fire. You swallow. Someone joins him, another elder, this one quieter, slower. They pass a gourd back and forth. They keep talking. You understand maybe one word in 10, but it doesn't matter. You're not here for answers. You're here for weight. Fun fact, many Aboriginal cultures pass down ghost stories not to frighten, but to teach boundaries. Sacred spaces, dangerous behaviour, places you don't go unless called, places you don't talk about lightly. Scholars remain cautious when recording these stories. Some are shared publicly, some are not. Some change depending on who asks, and that's by design. Knowledge has layers, and not everyone gets to peel back all of them. The elders go quiet. You look at the coals again, the tree, the stars, then something shifts. A breeze picks up, cool and sudden. The trees rustle, the embers hiss, you shiver. It's not fear exactly, it's knowing you're small. You thank the elder with a nod. He nods back. No need for more. You return to your mat, wrap yourself tighter and lie down. This time the night feels deeper, more familiar. Still full of noises, yes, but now they have names. The chirp is a gecko. The thump is a kangaroo. The soft drumming? Probably a stick tapping in the wind. Probably. You close your eyes, and when you open them again, the sun is peeking above the gum trees, and the fire is smoke. You survived the night. Barely. The sun is still low when you're woken by a gentle kick. Not hard. Just enough to say, get up, sleepyhead. It's time to walk. Not just for gathering, not for ceremony, not even for firewood. This walk is different. Longer. Intentional. The kind of journey where the destination matters less than the path itself. You join a small group. 2 elders, a teenage boy, and a girl not much older than the child who once smeared ochre on your face. They're carrying nothing but spears, a water bag, and the kind of focus that makes your backpack full of snacks and sunscreen feel absurd. No one says much, but they move with purpose. The bush changes as you go. Fewer tall gums, more low scrub and dry spinifex. The soil turns paler, crunchier. You start to see odd shapes among the stones. Lines of small rocks, scars on tree trunks, carved hollows in boulders. You're not just walking, you're crossing. Dreaming path, the teenage boy says suddenly, pointing to the ground. You nod, pretending you know what that means. But soon you begin to feel it. There's a rhythm to the steps, a beat to the landscape. The rocks aren't random. They mark something. Memory. Direction law. One elder stops beside a particular tree. She places her hand against the bark and murmurs something. You do the same, softly. The bark is cool, rough, ancient. Then she draws a line in the dust with her toe. A spiral, a cross, a line that ends in a curl. You stare at it. She looks at you, points to your arm. You glance down. Faint traces of yesterday's ochre still cling to your skin. The spiral, the dash, the crescent. This place matches your marks. That's not coincidence. This is a lesson. You're on your line now. They walk farther. You follow. Eventually you reach a small clearing where the ground has been flattened by generations of feet. A rock formation looms ahead, low, round, like a resting animal. The elder raises a hand. Sit. You do. She speaks, slowly, carefully. She tells you a story about a spirit child born in a stone who ran too fast, laughed too loud, and kicked dust into the eyes of a serpent who guarded the stars. The child was chased across the land, leaving cracks and springs and salt flats behind. You realise this is one of the places he passed through. You're sitting in a story. You ask, "Can I walk on it?" She pauses, then shrugs. You already did. There's no scolding, no correction. But something in her tone tells you, some lines aren't meant to be crossed carelessly. Fun fact, dreaming paths, also known as songlines, are sacred routes across the land that trace the journeys of ancestral beings. They connect geography to myth, history to movement. Some are marked in song, some in carvings, some only in memory. Anthropologists have marvelled at how these oral maps preserved navigational knowledge across vast territories. Others caution, they're not just maps, they're law. You don't just travel them, you belong to them, or you don't. On the way back, the group doesn't speak. You don't either. Your feet land a little softer now. You scan the path differently. Every rock might matter. Every tree might remember. When you return to camp, the fires have been relit. Children chase each other in circles. Someone is grinding seeds. Life flows on. You sit near your mat and pull off your dusty shoes, and then you trace the spiral on your arm with your fingertip. Not to clean it, just to remember. The mood in camp today is different. You can sense it in the way people sit, the way voices drift lower, the way tools are handled with greater care. Even the children seem quieter, not fearful, just still. Something's happening. No one explains it outright. But you start picking up pieces, words exchanged in hush, glances toward the horizon. The older teens sharpen spears without being told. An elder mixes ochre with more focus than usual. Eventually, someone gestures for you to come. You follow. The group heads toward the edge of the bush, an open stretch where the trees thin and the earth spreads wide and red. They're gathering materials, not for a hunt, not for a meal, for something else, a burial. You hadn't expected this. There's no body, not here. The person has passed far away, too far to bring home in the physical sense. But that doesn't stop the ritual. The earth still needs to know. The people still need to mark it. This is a message to the land. Your role is not clear. So you stay back, respectful, observant. An elder begins to sing. It's not melodic. It's rhythmic, measured, like footsteps across stone. Another joins, then a third. The harmonies are subtle, rising like smoke, looping like wind. You feel it more than hear it. Someone spreads a circle of ash on the ground. Others arrange leaves, bark, feathers in deliberate patterns, symbols you don't recognize but feel are charged with meaning. A woman begins to paint her arms with white clay, then her face, then her chest. Others do the same. The white smudges make them look ghostly, glowing under the midday sun, and then they fall silent. Completely. Not even the birds chirp. You feel it in your chest. This isn't just grief. It's connection. The idea that the person who passed is not lost, just returned. Back into the story, back into the cycle. Their path is still traced in the land. The dreaming remembers. You crouch by a small tree, unsure if you should even breathe. A child walks past, dragging a stick through the dirt, drawing spirals. He glances at you and points. Too loud, he whispers. You nod. Press your lips shut. The ceremony continues in waves. Singing, stillness, gesture, more singing. Someone scatters the leaves into the air. Someone draws lines on the ash with their fingertips. And when the sun tilts just slightly, the whole group turns to face west, toward the one who passed. No speeches, no wails. Just that slow, shared exhale of people letting go. Fun fact, not all Aboriginal groups follow the same funerary traditions. Some hold ceremonies immediately, others wait, some bury, others use sky platforms. In some cultures, the deceased name is not spoken for months, or even years. It's a way of honouring the journey into the spirit world and avoiding calling them back prematurely. Scholars still debate the meanings behind certain rituals, especially those not explained to outsiders. Are they metaphors, literal beliefs, psychological practices refined over millennia? The truth is, many layers exist, and outsiders rarely see them all. After the final chant, someone collects a few ashes and places them into a carved koolaman. It's carried gently, like a sacred object. You're told it'll be taken to another place, somewhere more private, more permanent. The group disperses slowly, without chatter. Everyone walks in different directions, not like strangers, but like stars returning to their constellations. You remain for a moment, alone in the clearing, looking at the ash spirals drawn in the dirt. The wind is starting to shift them already. You reach down and trace one with your finger, just once, then stand and leave it untouched. Later, back at camp, no one speaks of the ceremony directly, but you notice that food is shared more deliberately, that greetings are softer, that even the children play with less chaos. Someone passes you a piece of roasted meat and says, "You sat well," that's all, but it means everything. You nod, unable to find words. That night, you stare at the fire until your eyes burn. You realise, memory here is not written, it's walked, it's sung, it's held. This morning no one gives you a task. You wake to the usual rustling of camp, feet over dry leaves, firewood cracking, birds whistling in tree hollows. But instead of gestures or nods sending you toward fire pits or digging sticks, people simply pass by with polite glances. It's not coldness, it's space. You're being left alone on purpose. At first, you're relieved. Your legs are sore. Your hands are covered in cuts and calluses. Your shoulders ache from sleeping on bark mats, and there's still a faint leech-shaped bruise on your shin. A rest day? Yes, please. But by mid-morning, you're restless. No one's talking to you. No one even accidentally hands you a tool. It's like you've become a ghost. Visible, but not necessary. You try to be helpful. Sweep a bit of dirt with a leafy branch, add bark to a fire. But the glances you receive say, "Not now." Eventually you sit near the edge of camp where the sun filters through tall trees and just wait. After a long quiet while, an elder passes and sits beside you. He doesn't speak. Just places a flat rock between you and begins etching something onto its surface with a pointed stick. Circles, lines, arcs. You watch. It's not a picture. Not exactly. It's a place, a sequence, a moment in time recorded without numbers or letters. He finishes, tilts the stone toward you and nods once. This is where we are. Then he draws another small shape beside the others, smaller, newer. You are here. You stare. It's not meant as insult. It's invitation. You point to the smaller mark. Me? He shrugs. You now. The idea settles slowly. This morning's silence wasn't exclusion. It was a test. A space created to see what you'd do with it. Fun tidbit. In many Aboriginal traditions, silence isn't emptiness. It's presence. It's time for reflection, for internal listening. Young people are sometimes given days to be still and observe before being allowed to speak or act again. It's not punishment. It's respect for the self, for the place. Anthropologists still argue about how to translate this into Western logic. Contemplative isolation is one term. Non-verbal teaching is another. But really it's a form of deep invitation to think, not just do. You spend the rest of the day quietly. You walk a bit, sit a lot, observe even more. You notice things you hadn't before, the sound of wind changing pitch through different types of leaves, how children communicate entire conversations with just hand signs, how even the dogs of the camp seem to know which fire not to approach. At dusk, someone walks by and sets a stone knife next to you. No comment, just sets it down. A moment later, a child picks it up, cuts open a roasted tuber with it, and hands you half. A shared act. No words. Accepted. Later that night, while the fire burns low and the stars settle into place, the elder returns. He draws a new shape beside the mark he made for you earlier. It's not smaller, it's wider. He looks at you and says, "You see more now?" You nod, quietly, carefully. You don't need to ask what that shape means. You already feel it. You're still not from here, but you're no longer outside. The next morning you're handed something you've never seen before. It's a bundle, tightly wrapped in bark and bound with a strip of twisted sinew. Inside, you're told, is a message. Not for you, for another group. You blink. You want me to carry it? The man who gives it to you nods, then taps his heart. Then the bundle, then points beyond the far ridge. You're going on a walk. Not alone, thankfully. You're sent with two others. A young woman who's carrying a throwing stick and a boy with a pouch of something that smells suspiciously like roasted grubs. They don't speak much. They don't explain the route, but they know it. You just follow. The trail winds through dry scrub past termite mounds and sandstone outcrops that look like sleeping giants. Every now and then, the woman stops, touches a tree, or hums a note. The boy marks a rock with a dab of ochre. These aren't rest stops. They're checkpoints, part of a songline. You're stepping along a memory. You want to ask what's in the bundle, but you don't. That's not the point. You're not carrying information, you're carrying trust. After a few hours, you reach a clearing where another small camp sits under the trees. Not much is different at first glance. More bark huts, more fires, more baskets. But the energy's new. The people here move differently, speak with a different cadence. Their ochre marks curve instead of line. Their dogs are smaller. You hesitate at the edge of the trees. The woman nods for you to go forward. You walk into the clearing, bundle in hand. All eyes are on you. But no one moves. They're waiting. You step forward, kneel, and offer the bark-wrapped message to the man closest to the fire. He doesn't touch it right away. He looks at you, then at the others, then at the bundle. Then, with great care, he accepts it. Only then does the tension break. Someone laughs. A few words are exchanged. One woman claps twice. You did it right. You're not told what's in the bundle. Maybe a symbol, maybe ash, maybe a feather or a story stone. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it arrived, carried with care, passed along like the next verse in a song. Fun fact, Aboriginal message sticks were once used widely across Australia to carry agreements, invitations or ceremonial news between distant groups. They were often etched with symbols readable only by those meant to see them. The messenger wasn't always a warrior. Often, it was someone trusted not for strength, but for presence. Scholars still debate the origin of the message stick tradition. Were they always physical, Or did the symbolic systems evolve from even older oral roots? And how did they ensure a stranger could walk through unknown territory unharmed? The answer, you're learning, is relationship. You're not a stranger if you carry the story the right way. After a meal shared under a different kind of gum tree, you and your small crew turn back toward your home camp. On the way, the boy tells a joke. You don't understand half of it, but you laugh anyway. The girl offers you a roasted seed cake. It tastes like burnt cinnamon and wood smoke. When you return, the firekeeper nods at your empty hands. Gone? You nod. Good. That's the entire debrief. Later that evening, one of the children asks if you're a messenger now. You shrug. Only for one story, you say. But inside you feel a quiet pride. You didn't just carry something today. You were part of something. A link in a chain older than fire. You've become attached to a digging stick. Not in the sentimental, I shall name him Stick McDiggerson kind of way. More in the, I actually know how to use this now kind of way. It started yesterday. Someone handed it to you without comment and pointed toward the edge of camp. You followed, assuming it was more firewood duty. But no, you were taken to a patch of dry, cracked earth dotted with wiry grass and told to dig. For what? No clue. But now, 24 hours later, here you are, still digging. Not randomly, skillfully. You can feel the difference in soil moisture just by the way your stick vibrates. You know how to pry under roots instead of snapping them. You can tell the difference between a buried bulb and a buried rock with just one well-placed poke. This morning, the older woman who first taught you to gather bush onions actually waited for your results, instead of doing a quiet, oh no eye roll when you arrived. She even tasted one of your yams before tossing it into the basket. High praise. After a while, you sit back on your heels and look at your hands, dry, blistered, dirt under every fingernail, and feel oddly proud. Not because you're becoming some kind of foraging superhero, but because you're useful. You finally contributed something that required no supervision, no rescue, no translating. You made dinner happen. As you carry your gathered roots back to camp, a little girl runs past you, barefoot and shrieking joyfully. She's got a piece of bark over her head like a hat. You smile, then realise she's running toward a commotion. You follow. A group is clustered around a man sitting near the fire, holding his foot and wincing. A snake bite. Nope, a thorn. A big one. You wince too. It's in deep. Someone fetches a pair of carved tweezers. Yes, wooden tweezers. Surprisingly elegant. But the thorn is stubborn. And then, for reasons you'll never fully understand, someone hands you the tweezers. You freeze. They trust you? Apparently yes. You kneel. Steady your hands. Gently press around the wound. The man grimaces but doesn't pull away. The thorn tip appears. You grip it. Pull slowly. It comes free, clean, no breakage. You hold it up like a trophy. It's the size of a sewing needle. The man sighs, nods. Someone pats your shoulder. A child applauds, quietly. It's official. You're the bush medic now. Fun tidbit. Bush first aid knowledge was, and still is, a critical part of survival for many indigenous groups. Antiseptic plants, poultices, sap, smoke, even the ash of particular woods were used to clean wounds, reduce swelling and soothe bites. Healing wasn't always fast, but it was rooted in thousands of years of careful observation. Scholars still debate how much of this was ritual versus medicinal. Did chants and smoke enhance healing through belief, or was there biochemical efficacy in those plants all along? The answer, often, is yes. Belief and botany walk hand in hand here. That evening, you're invited to a small teaching circle. No ceremony, no ochre, just stories. One elder tells of a time when the rivers ran backward. Another shares a tale of a man who dreamed of a tree, then walked 2 weeks to find it. A third recalls a lightning strike that split a hill and created 2 twin lakes. You listen, eyes wide, ears full. Then someone turns to you. Tell one. You panic. What could you possibly say that wouldn't sound ridiculous? You take a breath. Then you tell them about the thorn. The man with the foot smiles. He lifts it, wiggles his toes. Everyone laughs. Not at you, with you. And when you finish, someone mimics your story in dance, dramatically hopping, yelping, acting like the thorn was a spear. The children howl with laughter. You've officially made it into oral tradition. Okay, maybe just the comedic section. but it still counts. That night, as the stars press against the sky and the coals smoulder like the world's last heartbeat, you lie back on your mat and rest your hands on your stomach. They're sore, they're dirty, they're useful, and tomorrow, when the digging stick is passed around, you won't need to be handed it. You'll pick it up yourself. The last morning doesn't announce itself. There's no speech, no farewell dance, no solemn drumbeat or public ceremony. Just the usual soft stir of firelight and footsteps, the smell of ash and bush yam, the occasional yawn from a small child curled in a cloak, but you feel it. Today is the day you leave. You pack nothing. There's nothing to pack. No phone, no souvenirs, no scroll of wisdom written down to carry back. Everything you've learned here lives in your hands, your blisters, the smoke deep in your clothes, the faint red spiral that still clings to your arm. You sit by the fire. Someone offers you tea, infused with eucalyptus and something peppery. You take it gratefully. Warmth in a carved bark cup. You sip slowly. The elder who first painted you with ochre joins you. "Time now," she says simply. You nod. A few others gather. No big send-off. Just a gathering of presents. A farewell not spoken but shared. They offer you one last thing. A small pouch, woven from grass. No larger than your fist. Inside is a smooth stone, red, with a shallow groove carved across its face. It's not symbolic in some grand, obvious way. It's a thing that has meaning because they chose to give it to you. You don't ask what it means, you don't need to. As you stand, someone pats your shoulder. Another claps once. And then, one by one, they return to their rhythms. The grinding, the fetching, the listening. You walk out of camp alone. But you're not alone in the way you were when you first arrived. You walk softer now. You pause when the wind shifts. You tilt your head to the birdsong. You scan the ground with an awareness that wasn't there before, and somewhere in your body, deep in the muscles that learn to sit still, to crouch low, to flake stone, you feel the rhythm of the place still echoing. You think of everything you've lived through here. The fire you couldn't start. The egg you exploded. The leech you screamed over. The story you stumbled through. The thorn you pulled. You think of the ochre, the stars, the quiet clapping after your awkward dance. You think of the spiral drawn on the ground, the one on your arm, and then, as the gum trees begin to thin and the path opens up to the wider bush, the final image sets itself gently in your mind. A camp that did not need you, but let you stay anyway. So now, wherever you are, curled in bed, drifting in and out of dream, you can let it go. Let the bush fade behind your closed eyes, the fire crackle soft in your memory. You don't need to hold the stone, or the pouch, or the smell of resin on your hands. They're all still with you, even now. Let your breath slow. Let your hands unclench. There are no spears to sharpen tonight, no embers to feed, no bark to carry, just the sound of wind through tall trees somewhere far away. Imagine your mat beneath you again, woven and scratchy, yes, but earned. Imagine the stars above you humming, quiet, not still, ancient, not cold, patient. Feel the earth under you. Feel the story holding you. Feel your place, not centre, not hero, just part. And let that be enough. No more tracking. No more guessing which wood burns best or which grub you're supposed to eat raw. You did it. You walked softly. You listened. You stayed. So now you can sleep. Really sleep. And if your dreams carry you back, to ochre, to stars, to a spiral in the sand, just follow. Softly. The way they taught you. End of script. Sweet dreams.